Sattler 5.
Welcome back, and for our sports wrap each week, Ric Gloede joins me. How are you, Ric?
I'm fine, thanks, Tom. How are you going?
Yeah, very well. Big week in sport all round, wasn't it?
It was a terrific week. A bit disappointing for the Dockers again, but we'll get into that.
Yes. The games that you watched, obviously the Dockers, but the Eagles, another good win.
Oh, Eagles were quite terrific, mate. They tore the Pies apart in the first quarter, and then they just took their foot off the pedal for a while. And
They did, didn't
can't
they?
do that with other sides. And poor goal kicking again. Kennedy kicked 3 goals, 6, and LeCras missed a couple that he bed and breakfast for him. But then they applied pressure in the last, and they kicked 9 out of the last 10 goals. So it was a pretty good effort, really.
Yeah, I thought I actually left the broadcast at quarter time and went off and did some stuff and came back thinking it was all over Red Rover. And it ended up it was, but you're right. They let Collingwood back into the game a little bit, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. But Collingwood weren't always going to play as bad as they did in the first quarter anyway, of course. But once the Eagles put on their pressure, they were really, I think they were quite good. They've just got to win some games away. And I think the game against Geelong is winnable, Tom, because they're very similar grounds, Geelong and Domain. And I think I might just tip the Eagles on the weekend, but you know, Geelong's also obviously got very good form, so it's going to be an interesting game. But they've got to win. You know, you've got to win half your away games to make the 4.
And their track record at Geelong is not good.
Not good, but there's an article in the paper by young Braun this morning, and one of the great comebacks in AFL history was at Geelong, and the Eagles came back and they beat Geelong after being 40-odd points down, and they won the premiership that year.
Yes.
And they did a similar thing against Carlton when they were 44 points down. So they've just got to win those games. And I mean, to me, it seems to be something above the shoulders, because the footy they're playing at Subi, they must be able to replicate somewhere else, Tom.
You would think so. Now, speaking of premierships, last year's premiers copped a flogging on the weekend.
They certainly did, and they also copped another bad injury too in Hodgie.
Yes.
And I see an article where what's his name? Their full forward is their ex-full forward that's on their board.
Dunstall.
Oh, Dunkley is. What's his name?
Yeah, Dunstall.
Yeah, Dunstall has written them off for the 2016 premiership.
Wow. Okay, didn't see that.
Whether that's a psychological thing or not, I don't know, but I wouldn't be writing them off too quickly.
No, they're a very good side, but they were seriously outplayed. But GWS are on the march, aren't they?
Which brings us to the Dockers, mate.
Yes.
I thought the Dockers were pretty competitive for a lot of the game, and a lot of their I mean, in AFL football, Tom, there is no doubt if you don't hurt someone on the scoreboard, they're going to come back and blow you away, and that's what happened at Collingwood. And it happened on the positive side for Adelaide on the weekend. They just, played 20, 30 minutes of good football and wiped them away. But the Dockers should have been up there with them with the amount of shots they had on goal. And it's a very interesting side at the moment. A big test for Greater Western Sydney coming to Subi this week, because they've got the Dockers are going to be on the rebound. You can bet about that. And they've got some very good players, mate. But I'm very pleased that, people criticise Lyon for not developing sides. Well, if you look in that side at the moment, he's already introduced Lockie Weller, Ed Langdon, Brady Gray, Darcy Tucker. An article in the paper this morning about a real good kid by the name of Ethan Hughes who's been going well at Peel. But it just seems that real good players like De Boer, Ibbotson, Subin, Mazungai are back in the waffle, and whether they'll re-emerge or not, I'm not sure. I have more faith in Ibbotson and Subin than the other two, but I've never seen Mazungai put in a bad game until the other day, and he's the first one that Ross always drops. So it's a bit of a shame. Yeah,
nice
if the Dockers could get back a Fife and an Apinis and the big Ruckman and Bennell. We're terrific to get Bennell in, but I'm still going to go for the Dockers against GWS this week.
Okay.
I need to pick up a little bit on my tipping, and I just think that they might surprise a few people.
Local level, waffle. You
local level.
Yes, at waffle level. I believe there was.
Rained and they all got wet.
Yes. South Fremantle. You want to talk about them or what?
The bloody umpire must have been bad, Tom. Must have been bad, eh?
Must have been. Yeah, we'll pass that on. The umpiring was bad. That's why South lost.
No, they ran into a very good side, and they really know now what they've got to do if they want to be up there at the top at the end of this year. And Subi just keep, pumping it out, and they were terrific apparently. Dockers, the South came back at them in the third quarter when they moved Hams to half back. And I think they got to within 3 or 4 points of them, but then Subi went away again. But interesting to see East Fremantle, who's had a couple of hidings in the last few weeks, come up and belt East Perth.
Yes. Unusual win there. And, of course, West Perth and Claremont away in the country as well.
Yep.
Which was good.
And that's right. And West Perth snuck one in, which they badly needed, I think. And,
yes.
It's a shame for Claremont, but Claremont go back to the showgrounds this weekend against South.
Yeah, it'll be a good game.
Should be.
Probably the big sporting story of the week, and I know you've posted heaps on it about on Facebook, the soccer.
Leicester.
Yes, Leicester.
Wonderful result. I mean, if you look at the amount of money their team's worth, $54 million, and you compare it to Man United, who they drew with really to get them in the position to win, $400 million, mate. It's always Man United, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal. They're always up there. And I mean, I looked through their Premier list the other day, and I think in the last 20 years, Man United's won 13 of them.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it was 132 years, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Which I think from memory, if my memory is working well today, 132 years was also the length of time for the America's Cup, I think, as well.
Oh yeah, it was something like that. It was America's Cup was certainly a huge deal in that respect. I read somewhere where of the great things that have happened over the years. One of them was about a young man called Edmonton who was working as a plumber. And he managed to qualify for the Australian Open and beat John Newcombe in the final.
Yep.
So there's those sort of things are terrific news, aren't they?
It's going to be a story. I saw some footage of the celebrations. I think that celebration will be going for weeks and weeks and weeks over there.
Wow, yeah, I reckon.
Other sporting stories that you're across? Well,
the big one this week, I think, is probably the Parramatta.
Yes.
Cheating the salary cap. They've lost 12 points. That's the only points they've won this year.
And $1 million.
Fined $1 million. So that puts them in the position that Melbourne found themselves in a few years ago when their president played up.
Plus also some resignations required as well. So the CEO, I think, and the chairman both gone. So basically the board decimated. So it's a club in turmoil at the moment, isn't it?
It certainly is, but I mean, it's their own making, mate. You've got to follow the rules.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah, it's it's a massive penalty, but I guess the signal that it sends is probably a very good one.
Yeah. One other little item I picked up on this morning was young McEntee, a West Australian kid, qualifying for the 5,000 metres in Rio.
Yep.
And I think that's a terrific thing. I mean, obviously Kenya and these other countries tend to dominate that, and it's good to see an Australian kid in there, and especially one from Perth, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's going to be some good stories out of Rio.
Yeah, it should be good. It should be good. Like always, they're not ready. They'll never be ready, etc. And on the day, they always seem to be ready, don't they?
Yeah, generally speaking. Very much so.
A couple other things, mate. Young Petrie from North Melbourne, a great contributor to the game, 300 games this weekend. And another couple of, the Lobby from Port is out for 12 weeks with a knee. So there's a few other injuries going around. And I thought the interesting one was the Sinclair injury on the weekend where they called for the stretcher.
Yes.
And Lepich is having a big reaction to that. And it seems that somebody found out a way of stopping the game and ending some momentum that looked like they might have been going to lose the game. But then that's only conjecture, isn't it?
It's not the first time that's happened.
No.
Happened, I think, 2 seasons ago from memory. Similar situation.
And also also getting back to footy, the Demesa Richmond, they're just going, I mean, everyone's complaining about the Dockers, but look at Richmond.
Yeah.
You know, that's a side that was on the up, and they're just not into this new competition.
No.
Saints, on the other hand, on the rise.
How quickly they fall from grace.
Yeah, exactly.
No, always good.
Melbourne are a bit of an enigma, Tom. They're winning this week and not winning the next, and beating good sides and losing to sides that you think they're going to win against. And I've got a son-in-law and a daughter who are mad D's fans, and that breaks their heart.
Yeah, they're a bit of a hard case to follow at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, another little one.
Yep.
A really terrific player, I think, came from the Bulldogs and gone to the Suns, is that young Harbrow.
Yes.
And he plays his 100th game for Gold Coast this week. And if ever anyone, deserves a bit of success in the game, it's this kid. He's a very good player, mate.
Good move. That's a good rap.
Yeah.
That's a very good rap.
Yeah.
Enjoy your games this week, and given that you've gone with both the WA teams as well, which is interesting.
I don't usually bet with my heart, and that's not what I'm doing. I just think that the Eagles need to win one away, and I think we'll be very well motivated. And I just think that maybe the boys from the Greater Western Sydney might just be listening too much of their own propaganda this week. We'll see how they go.
All right, we'll check out how your tips went next week.
Good on you, Tom.
Good on you, Ric.
All the best.
Ric Gloede talking sport, all sporting, especially footy, but all the other bits and pieces as well. And we'll be back with more very shortly on the Sattler Files.
This is the Sattler Files.
DevRite Homes, when you're looking for attention to detail and a uniquely designed home to suit all your needs. At DevRite Homes, we only build a limited number of homes per year, so we can truly focus on what you want out of a prestige home builder. We've continually won awards for excellence, with a record number of wins last year and the proud winner of the Australian Townhouse Villa of the Year. While we love building homes to suit each client, we pride ourselves on designing homes that take into account the special safety needs of some of our clients. If you have a dream, we can make it come true. Talk to Jay Mangano and find out more about DevRite Homes at www.devrite.com.au.
You need banking services of any type. Secure Force Protective Services run a cash and transit service here in Perth. From as little as $25, why risk your employees travelling to the bank when Secure Force can do it for you? Give us a call at 9440-5011.
You only ever want the best for your family, and no one understands this better than the caring ladies at Marina Perslow and Associates. That's why we offer...
This is the Sattler Files.
Welcome back, talking sport, footy in particular, and from Channel 7 and Mix 94.5, the legendary Adrian Barich joins me. How are you, Barrett?
Tommy, you're too kind, mate, but I wouldn't put myself in that category, that's for sure. That's for Dennis Cometti and who else? Glenn Jakovic, maybe some of the other West Coast Eagles stars. Just a battler, me.
Oh, look, no time to be modest. Now, last week, starting with the Eagles-Collingwood game, a good win, but they took the foot off the accelerator a bit, didn't they?
They did in the middle two quarters, no doubt about that, and just not quite hitting their straps at the moment. They've got a few problems with Lewis Jetta, their star recruit. Some of his stats are worse than last season, and he had a bad season last season. So we just had a press conference then with Adam Simpson. I don't think he likes doing midweek press conferences because you kind of have to fudge the facts a bit. I guess you'd put it that way when you can't declare who's injured and who's under pump and who might get dropped. So he prefers to talk on Friday when everybody knows who's out of the team and who's in it. So he has to talk in riddles, and he more or less backed in Lewis Jetta, saying that we've got to be patient. But I can tell you, he is struggling, and he's got to be under the microscope. And he said they've got a couple of injury concerns with McGovern and Darling as well. And of course, mate, they haven't won at Geelong since 2006. Actually, since Matt Prittis made his debut for the Eagles, that was his debut game.
Yep.
They haven't won down there. I think they've only played 4 times, but still, and they've been pumped by like 60 points every time. So, not a happy hunting ground, the old Cats Haven, but that's where they're off to, and they need to make a statement. They need to show they can beat a good team on the road. They haven't been able to do that. They haven't been able to do that for years. Actually, they've won 1 out of sort of 16 against clashes with teams that are finals bound, or ended up playing in the finals. So They can beat the mugs, but they can't beat the good teams over there, particularly Hawthorn, Sydney and Geelong. They haven't beaten those three for 10 years.
The configuration at Geelong's home ground is not that different to Subiaco. Why is it such a problem?
Yeah, very perceptive by you. Yeah, you've done your research. That's right. It is. It's interesting. It's quite similar. He said that today, Simpson. It's quite similar to Domain Stadium, or Geelong. Geelong is quite similar to Subi. And he can't work it out either. But he says it's nothing to do with our routine. We're not going to change things or, experiment. We think it's just that we're playing good teams on the road over there, and Geelong's a good team. And we've been through all that. When we first started the Eagles, we tried everything. We had wristbands with eucalyptus on it that you were supposed to sniff every time you felt you didn't feel strong. The direction from John Todd was to sniff your armband. They were white and they didn't look great. And when they got wet, they became longer, and people were pulling them off and throwing them everywhere and putting them around their head. And oh my God! One day we stayed on Melbourne time, on Perth time. Sorry, when we were in Melbourne. So we went to bed. If you went to bed at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, say normally in Melbourne, you went to bed at midnight, perhaps even later, because you were stuck on Perth time.
Yeah.
So that was another thing we experimented with to try to keep us acclimatised. We had the things that we did in the early days to try to adjust to the travel was actually unbelievable. We wore singlets one day. They reckoned that maybe we were cold, so they gave us all these singlets, these Bond singlets. But of course, when they got wet, they sort of stretched a bit and they started hanging out the back of our jerseys, and they were white. And I tell you what, I don't think that game was telecast, thank God, because that was a shocker as well.
Yeah. Now, John Todd was in the news this week speaking out about the inaccurate kicking, particularly with the Eagles, but generally in AFL, saying it's just inexcusable. What's your take on, some of the goals that have been missed, and particularly even last week, with Kennedy kicking, 3-6 or something, and Lacroix missing a few that normally he'd kick with his eyes closed. What's going on there?
Well, there's only two things I can put it down to is the equipment. So in other words, that the different boots and balls have made it harder to kick straight. They don't hold their line as much, the footies, and the boots are like slippers, so they're not ideal for kicking. Or fatigue. They're really knackered. By the time they get the ball, they've gut run 120 metres, which means gut running is when you run and you don't want to run anymore, and your body's saying stop running.
Yeah.
That's when gut running kicks in. That means you're running through the pain barrier. It's the worst feeling, particularly when you're chasing someone. So that's generally how you get to be free. You just bust the other bloke, you blow him up, and then he gives up chasing you or just can't stay with you, and you get into a hole and they kick it to you, and hopefully the kick's good, and then you've got to bring your heart rate down from 200 to down, sort of 100 or 80 to try to relax yourself. You've got to do that in 30 seconds. So that must be the main factor, because Bernie Naylor and Austin Robinson and all these greats that Toddy mentioned, they never even left the goal square.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
There was no chasing. They didn't chase no bloke up the ground. They had some other bloke in the forward pocket who did the chasing for them. Tony Lockett was the same. They just said, go, you get him, and I'll just wait here, because when the ball turns over, I'll be on my own, and I'm dead-eye dick. I'll kick the goals. And generally they were kicking from a lot closer as well. Perhaps not Plugger, but certainly the greats like Naylor and Austin Robinson. So that's all I can put it down to, really, because they do more training and they practice more because they're professionals and they're out there. They train the entire week. It's incredible, their days. It is like going to a job. In fact, it's probably longer. And generally they only get one day off. If you're struggling, you only have one day of the week off. Some clubs have two if they're really generous. So there must be the fatigue factor, I reckon. Just
finally on the Eagles, and I suppose in line with that as well, they seem to, when they're moving the ball quickly, they're absolutely or virtually untouchable. Whereas, when they start doing that stop-start thing, that's when they start to fall into a bit of problem, when they're sort of bouncing the ball around a bit rather than actually moving it very, very quickly. Is that something that, maybe it's a confidence thing, or maybe they're trying to adapt a little bit because of that fatigue factor and the less rotations?
Well, they scored a goal against Collingwood, didn't they, that basically went untouched by Collingwood from the goal, the kick out.
Yeah, it was a kick out.
Kennedy kicked it, yeah. So
14 seconds or something, I think it took from memory.
14 or 17, and that's when the system works beautifully, and that's how they're supposed to play. But as Simpson said today, the problem is you've got this other team who's trying to disrupt your tactics and where you're running and putting pressure on you, and they're just as fit and they're just as strong and just as smart. So, yeah, they're playing on quickly. That's the key nowadays, is moving the ball quickly up the ground before the cavalry arrives, before everybody presses back. So, so they all go up the ground.
Yep.
And then if you can break away and get like a slingshot movement, they call it, before everybody gets back, then you're sweet. But if you hold it up like Richmond does, everyone just gets back there and you've got no chance of scoring because it's flooded. So, well,
Richmond and Fremantle at the moment, I mean, they're the two basket cases, aren't they, in terms of like messing around with the ball and the stop-start thing?
Yeah, and Fremantle's problem too is they can't hit a target, so that makes it even worse because you turn it over, and of course, as you know, all your team is out of position because they're breaking forward, and suddenly it's turned over. They've got to put the brakes on and put the hammer on to go back the other way, and generally the other team is in front of them and they score a goal. So, having said that, I reckon the Dockers. I don't reckon they're without their. I'm actually going to tip them against the Giants.
It's interesting you say that, because I was going to say there was some signs, and there seems to be a bit of a vibe that there were signs of the Fremantle that we saw last week, possibly for the first time this season, where they actually looked, at various stages in the game. Obviously not enough, but at various stages they did actually turn it on a bit, didn't they?
That's right. They went inside 50 the same number of times as Adelaide. They just couldn't kick straight. 2-11 in the first half. So the Pav was even missing, though he played quite well and took a fantastic mark.
How was that mark? That's got to be up there. That's got to be a contender for mark of the year, surely.
Yeah, Jonathan Brown style, wasn't it? Running, yes. Or Carey style, running with the flight of the ball and putting your life in danger that a Warsaw-style bloke's coming the other way.
Yep.
Yeah. But... yeah, it's funny with Fremantle because, I mean, you have to be a rocket scientist to work out that they're due for a win because they've had 6 losses. So I reckon next week, a week after that, they've got Hawthorn in Launceston.
Yeah, good luck with that.
So I reckon they've penciled this one in, right, boys, having a crack here. These guys, they don't like travelling. They're very young. They're cocky. They've just beaten Hawthorn. They probably think they're the next great thing, that there's been a change in the changing of the guard in the AFL.
Do you think there's anything in that? I mean, there's been a lot of noise about that in the last few days about what they did to Hawthorn and, dismembered them. Do you think there's anything in it that they really are the next big thing?
No, I don't think so. I think they will be because they've got such depth. They had something like 6 top 20 picks out of the team on the weekend. So
yes.
6 other guys that are top 20 picks in the wings. And they're going to pick up another 4, I think, good young players at the end of this year from their academy squads. And all of them are apparently absolute stars. So they'll be able to trade as well to get good players. So they'll be a potent force for the next 5 to 10 years, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But whether they can do the job this year, wouldn't be surprised if they really made a run at it, though, and finished top 4, and then they'd be really game on. I mean, the Eagles pumped the Hawks at the main stadium, didn't they? In the qualifying final, and we thought, geez, it's there for the Eagles, and then they got to the GF, and it's a whole different kettle of fish. So I probably wouldn't write off the Hawks just yet, but the Giants are coming, and they're going to get past them. There's no question. Probably next year, more likely.
So you're tipping Fremantle, and how do you reckon the Eagles will go? Do you reckon they can do it in Geelong?
I can't tip them. That 2006 game, remember they were. At some stage, I think they were 50 points.
Yeah, it was. I think very late in the game, they were still 40 points in the third quarter or something.
And then they stormed home, kicked 7 in the last quarter, and they did have Ben Cousins, who was absolutely on fire, and Daniel Kerr, who was only slightly behind that. Quinton, what's his name? Adam Hunter was brilliant.
Yes.
So that was a remarkable win. So, I mean, they could do that, but. You'd have to tip the Cats, I think. The Cats in that one, unfortunately. I'd love to tip the Eagles, but you'd have to think the Cats.
And broadcast times for you on Mix?
Well, Saturday night it'll be, we're on air at 5:30.
Yep.
And then the game starts at Bounce Downs at 6:10 at Domain Stadium. Interesting to see how many people turn out, Tommy, too. I've noticed the crowd's dropping a little bit each week, and the Giants probably don't have massive pulling power in terms of their fan numbers. So it'd be great to go and see all the young players that are going to come through and be great players in the comp. So
yeah, they'll become names in the next couple of years, won't they?
And the Eagles will be live, of course, out of Geelong Saturday afternoon, about 12 o'clock. So yeah, it's a great footy's great, isn't it? Though the way North, like I'd like to ask you, who do you think's going to, at this stage right now? Who do you think are the premiership favourites?
Look, I think North Melbourne actually have a right to be in the equation. They have a right to be in the discussion. They're doing everything correct at the moment. They're taking on everything. They're playing a great style of footy. Bulldogs, I reckon, the brand of footy that they're playing is sensational. And if they can keep their best players on the park.
To be recorded as saying North Melbourne and maybe the Bulldogs.
Yeah,
I'll say Sydney, even though they nearly got beaten by Brisbane last weekend. And I tell you what, Don Pike's done well at Adelaide.
Hasn't he?
Yeah, them and Geelong, they're the other two that I like. I just can't get North at the moment. I just think their old players later in the year may fall over. But having said that, they have won 6 in a row, so you're right. So
and when you talk old players, I mean, they've got Harvey, and look what he does. You know, he's phenomenal.
Yeah, they are a very old team now. They've got like 7 blokes over 30.
Yeah,
and Boomer, of course, he's a freak, though, isn't he?
Yes.
Human dynamo, that bloke. I'd love to know what he eats, because you all want to get on it. It's incredible.
Yeah, I don't think you or I are going to be eating that sort of stuff in the next few weeks.
He is pretty short, though. I'll give him that. So he doesn't have to do too much work. So but it's interesting. And a lot of people still say the Eagles. Of course, you wouldn't want to write them off because they were there last year. So
yeah, I just don't think they need to hit their straps. And as you said, they need to win some games away from home, because that's if you don't do that, then you're just not going to get there.
Well, you get 12 here or 11, or probably 12 this year because you win both derbies. And then you need to pick up another 4 to 5 at least to try to make the top 4. So at this stage, 0 on the road.
Yeah.
We'll see how they go.
No, it's a tough one. Mate, enjoy your weekend, and we'll speak to you again shortly.
Tommy, always great to speak to you. Have a great weekend.
Good on you. Adrian Barich from Channel 7 and Mix 94.5 talking football, and you'll be able to catch the coverage on Mix this weekend as well. Lots more coming up very shortly on the Sattler Files.
This is the Sattler Files.